She grew up working in her father's diner by the very small rural town of Freeport, Maine. Now Erin French owns one of the hardest to book restaurants in the country. Trust me, I've tried. It's called The Lost Kitchen, located in the town's old grist mill, less than 2 miles down the road. But her path from one to the other wasn't quite so direct, as she explains in a 6-part series about her restaurant on the Magnolia Network, which was named one of the best places in the world by Time magazine. A cook's story remaking a life from scratch. Erin French joins me now. Erin, good to meet you. Congratulations on the book.
Hi, Jim. Thank you so much.
You know, most people who watch this show know I don't like to reveal anything about myself, including what I had for lunch. You, in your book, reveal everything. From a tough father, a sadistic first husband, a drug habit, thoughts of suicide, the loss of absolutely everything. I don't know if I left anything out. Why did you decide to share such intimate details of your life with people you don't know?
Part of it for me was cathartic and putting it down and being able to forgive myself in that way. But part of it was also that I recognized in some of those moments that were so dark and so deep, they were so lonely. And when I was feeling that lonely, it felt hopeless. And so my hope was that if I could share my story, and if you look now and you thought, look at this girl who's running one of the hardest restaurants to get in the country, how is that possible? I want you to know that it's possible. I wrote that for that person who needed that strength to get through a hard moment.
Well, you know, I hope people who haven't read the book yet, and I hope they will, don't think when I use the adjective sadistic to describe your first husband, I was being hyperbolic. This is a guy who urged you to go to rehab for your drug problem, not because it turns out he wanted you to get better, but so that you'd be out of the way so that he could take everything from you, including your son, correct?
Yeah, that's my feeling. Yeah. It came as a surprise, and it was a very challenging time.
You write that logic is the death of dreams. I love that line. Where do you conjure up the whatever to be able to put logic aside and chase dreams? How does one do that, Erin?
Sometimes it's adrenaline, and dreams do give me adrenaline that pushes me sometimes to do things that seem impossible or crazy. And if I would stop long enough to think about the actual reality, maybe I would have put a pause on dreams that I had actually had. But there was something about just digging deep and driving forward and just believing in yourself in those dreams to make them happen.
You know, I should be clear, there's a lot of joy in this book, too, especially when you're talking about your son or when you're constantly talking about food. Can you share with us a memory or two from when you were a little kid working at your father's diner? What are the things that are most, like, sort of emblazoned on your brain there?
Probably the smell of the griddle and the smell of the home fries and the onions and the sound of the pancakes as they would splat was one of my biggest memories. And the vision of my grandfather fiddling around in the fry-later. I have a lot of very luscious diner memories, and it's still strangely the food that I love to eat today too. So,
how great was the meatloaf? Was the meatloaf anywhere close to as great as you described it?
The meatloaf is beyond what you could ever imagine. There's something about it. It's just sugary and sweet and meaty and comforting in all the right ways.
And all of that just is described in great detail. So it's been 13 months in this pandemic. How have you survived?
We're doing okay here. There was something that happened when the pandemic hit. It was like, here you go again. The rug has been taken out from not just me, from all of us. So it was comforting to know that I wasn't alone, but I felt like I had a little bit of practice in this, that I had fallen down a few times before. And that's kind of like life. We'll tumble and we'll have these roadblocks. And sometimes it's about what you do with it and how you keep pulling yourself up. So this was another example of that. And I really found it's crazy. You know, you hear these stories of people who built something bigger and better out of these wild pandemic moments. And there's something to be said for those hard moments that really give you that friction and the adrenaline to do something great.
Do you have an expected date when your restaurant reopens like it once was?
Well, we're not putting any pressure on the dining room per se at this point. I think we'll know when it feels right and when it feels safe. But one thing that I did really realize is that the walls don't matter, that we can have beautiful outdoor dinners and we can still reinvent ourselves in other ways. So we're just waiting till the grass gets green here, which is probably like still 4 months away in Maine. But yeah, we're looking forward to some outdoor dinners until we can safely get back into the dining room and feel that we can welcome people.
You know, Erin, for the few people watching who don't know how you, I was going to say make a reservation, that's a misnomer, attempt to make a reservation, explain how the postcard thing works.
So we do reservations by postcard, and I know that sounds a little wild, but it really started as a way to slow things down here, because when we started to become popular and the phone started ringing off the hook, we couldn't keep up with it. We couldn't listen to the garbled messages and try to figure out what the phone number said and what person was calling. And we were never going to be able to seat everyone that wanted to come to dinner here. And we realized that. So we turned it into a lottery, something where people could have a little fun, make their own postcards, send their own contact information, so we didn't have to listen to those garbled messages, and that people could get involved and also help out with our sleepy post office. And it's really made for connection. We get to connect with our guests before they've even arrived. We get little snippets of them and a feeling before they've even stepped foot through the door.
And how many days does it take you to fill every single seat for every single open day for the whole year?
Oh, gosh. Well, let's see. We pull about just over 1,000 postcards a year. That's how many tables we have. So it's about 1,000 postcards. And over the past few years, we've received about 20,000 postcards a year. So that's the math on that.
Are you able to step back from what you've done and what you've achieved to understand or to be able to describe to the rest of us why this thing has been such a huge success? Do you know why?
Part of it mystifies me because I don't have any professional training. I grew up cooking at my dad's diner. I taught myself a lot through catering and some other culinary just places where I pushed myself into. And so for a while I kept thinking, like, why are people coming here? How did this become a destination restaurant? Because that's not what I planned. I thought it was going to be a quiet cafe in the middle of nowhere and hope that people might show up for a good cup of coffee. But I really think what it is it's the power of food and love, because we put a lot of energy into really good ingredients, and it's our team. We're run by all women, and none of us have any formal training, and it's what we show up with every day and what we bring to the table, and making that experience. That's more than just about food. It's a feeling, and every little detail that goes into it, more than just the dish. It's a complete evening.
You know, in your acknowledgments at the end of the book, you mentioned obviously everybody who helped get you there, most people who helped get you there, your mother who has been there at every single turn in your life when you needed her, and your father is your last acknowledgement, a guy who was tough, not big on the hugs or the expressions of love or showing of pride. And you say there something like, well, he taught me everything about cooking, and I'm not sure where I'd be without him. You also say he may never read this book. Does it matter to you if he reads the book?
It wouldn't hurt my feelings. And that's part of the acceptance that maybe you can see, and I don't want to spoil anything, but the last page of the book is that sort of understanding of that I'm okay just who I am, and you can't change other people. You can't change the way they behave or the way they make you feel. And there comes a point when you're just like, okay, this is who this person is. I'm connected to them for life, and how do we move forward? And he was tough on me, but he also made me tough on myself. And I wouldn't be here today without those imperfect moments that I had with my dad in my childhood. It's a lot of shaping.
Let me just tell you, if the food is one half as good as the book, you are really on to something, Erin French. It's great to meet you. Congratulations on the book, and good luck with the year ahead.
Thank you. Thank you.